So, when I was a little baby benzene, first going to university, in my first class, the TAs all gave us these how to study guidelines with a few .edu citations on them. I think this is important to point out that here is the timeline of my life up to this point, and we're here right now. Going through elementary school, middle school, high school, and technical college, the total amount of time spent was 15 years. 15 years with no actual courses on how learning works at all? Seriously, this entire time it's just been like, here's a book, figure it out. Oh yeah, and everything you do in your life rides on you figuring it out. I got you covered. Today we become proficient in investigation. Here's your cliff notes. There are two things you can do. Improve your critical thinking through you making concept maps, not being handed them. Then the other is to acquire skills from doing problems and then checking if you are right. Making these more effective, and also the myths that arise in this field, are from understanding how to apply variety. Groups of 1 to 3 people tend to work the best. With 4 or more people, there's too many group dynamics. So, traveler, you come seeking the arcane arts. Luckily for you, a mere 70 inscriptions await your gaze, each using the same words differently. Dialogue called the Meno from 370 BC presents a passage in which tackles the issue where how does someone pursue something that is greater than what they already know? And depending on your metaphysics, if you are the universe, shouldn't you already contain all the information in that universe? But getting off topic. Today we're kind of sidestepping around epistemology, which is a branch of philosophy that discusses how knowledge works. Specifically, we're just looking at what science says works the best for learning. Learning is defined as a gain in knowledge or skills, where knowledge is the state of being aware of something existing, skills are the practical application of that awareness. Now, whether that awareness is accurate depends on critical thinking, which is a judgment of knowledge. All of this is a form of metacognition, which is being aware of how thought works. Metacognition is like the self-awareness for how your own thought works. All the best learning techniques are self-aware. And what this means is that they set goals, they choose strategies to follow, and then they reflect on how their progress is going. Explicitly targeting this averaged a 26% increase in academic scores as compared to 5% without. And that's comparing 556 studies to 1,700. The most definitive way to be the most successful as you can in terms of anything related to learning is reflecting on your learning. Alright, so we're about 10 references in, covering literally thousands of studies compared against each other. I think metacognition's covered. Moving on, let's look at knowledge, which is the state of being aware of something existing. And specifically, we use critical thinking as a skill to judge whether that evidence is appropriate or truthful. And we have 3 papers to go over, how do we use critical thinking to make our knowledge better. For the first one, concept mapping improved critical thinking. problem-based learning was not effective in improving critical thinking. However, an educator can transfer some critical thinking traits down. In this second one, with 355,000 students, the highest outcomes for teachers transferring their traits onto their students were for creative and critical thinking. And then on this last one, making maps outperformed reading texts, participating in class discussions, attending lectures, and it was across a very broad range of education levels, subject areas, and settings.
It's a little ironic that conspiracy theories all use maps.
So the answer here is make concept maps with the side of having smart teachers. Maps are better than text because we can derive meaning from how close things are together, their shape, and their color. It adds a spatial sense, so it's more efficient. And when people make maps on their own, they're roughly twice as educated as just studying it because they're going, am I making this map right? It's a reflection process. Groups studying maps is okay because they're adding discussion-related reflection on like how the map was made. Maps only perform equal to or better than other forms of information, so this is an entirely preferable medium. Skills are your run-of-the-mill homework quizzes and tests. Other than the practical application of knowledge, skills are the principles that link concepts. Most people are remarkably terrible at judging whether they've studied something well enough to have mastered it, and the feedback from quizzes and tests are a form of reflection. Oh, and some schools tried to replace their PE with testing, and that doesn't work. Brains distribute neural activity, and they have self-sustained cyclic patterns of activation known as neural networks. The places implicated in creating associations, processing environments, and memorization are all super interconnected crossroads in the neural circuitry. More associations, more environments are better for memorization. Essentially, this is saying that variety makes memorization better. So, learning styles. These are not fixed and unchanging, they develop as you do. You should know your own preferences and try to learn in that way, but when instructional material tailors to as many senses as possible, it's better than towards a specific learning style. Changing up your question formats, having more types of education, and then having more environments are all just applications of variety that make learning better. As for timing, unfortunately we can't say how long each study session should be, but we do know that the interval between study sessions is a day, and for lifelong learning, a little bit longer than a day. Groups are kind of inconsistent. Small groups seem like they help the most, although in all these meta-analyses and thousands of studies, there's not a good definition for what a small group is. But if your peers are smart, they can have the same effects as a teacher in the subject. And that's it. References are linked in the description, along with social media outlets and a Patreon if you want to help me out in this new artistic endeavor.